In this demonstration, I will be showing how to submit a prior authorization and the other functionalities of the Atrezzo Provider Portal. If this is your first time accessing the Atrezzo Provider Portal, you will need to complete the multi-factor authentication process. The multi-factor authentication is an extra layer of protection. There is a lot of PHI within the portal. The system needs to verify you are who you say you are. This is the same process that you may be familiar with when logging into your banking or credit card accounts. When your account is created by the provider group administrator, you will receive an email with a link. The MFA process must be completed within 2 days. If you do not activate your multi-factor authentication within 2 days, your provider group administrator can reset your account. You will click the link, and this will direct you to a new page within your web browser. Here you will begin the process of creating your multi-factor authentication information. You will choose your login method. It is important to remember when completing this step that you are choosing how you will receive your verification code. You can choose the login with phone or login with email. The phone option should only be used if you have access to a 10-digit direct line. This can be a mobile phone or a landline. Extensions are not supported. If you do not have access to a direct line, you will want to choose the email option. For demonstration purposes, I will choose phone because it will demonstrate the process for both email and phone. The next thing you need to do is enter your email address. You will not enter any information into the password fields yet. You must first verify your email address. You will now click Send Verification Code. You will receive a 6-digit verification code to the email address you provided. You will enter that code into the verification code field. Then click Verify Code. At the top, you will see that the email address has been verified. You can now create your new password and confirm your password. During this step, you are actually creating your login user ID and password. Then click Create. This section will cover the phone verification. You will enter the direct phone number you wish to use to verify your identity. You can choose to send code or call me. By selecting Send Code, you will receive an SMS text to your mobile device. Call Me will prompt a phone call where you will press a specific digit to verify your identity. I will select Send Code. You will notice that there is not an action button on this screen. When you enter the code, the system will automatically verify your account. The page will automatically refresh and the Terms of Use agreement will be displayed. You will read the Terms of Use agreement, scroll to the bottom, where you will check the box that you have read and agree to these terms. Then click Continue. You will then be directed to the home screen of the Atrezzo Provider Portal. When logging in, you will use the Customer Provider side located on the right. You will choose the login with phone or login with email, depending on how you registered your account. If you do not have your phone with you and you only have access to your email, You can always select Log in with email. I want to draw your attention to the box that says Remember Me. Each time you log into the portal, you have to verify your multi-factor authentication. If you access the system on a regular, consistent basis throughout the day, you can click Remember Me. You will receive a reminder that you should only use this feature on a private device. Remember Me should not be used if you are sharing a computer. I will click OK to dismiss. If you click Remember Me before selecting your login method, the system will remember you for 4 hours, which means you will not have to complete the multi-factor authentication for those 4 hours. I will click Login with Phone for my demonstration. You will enter in your email address and password and click Sign In. You will then be directed to send code or call me. This is a similar process as before when you were registering your account. I will click Send Code. When the code is received, you will enter the code and the system will automatically verify your account. The screen will refresh and bring you to the home screen of the provider portal. I will now demonstrate how to reset your password. Once again, from the login screen, you will choose the Login with Phone or Login with Email. I will choose Login with Phone. And below the fields to enter your email address and password, there is a hyperlink that says Forgot Your Password. If you have forgotten your password, you will click Forgot Your Password. You will then enter your email address. Then click Send Verification Code. You will receive the verification code in your email. You will enter the code into the verification code box. Then click Verify Code. The email address has been verified. You will then click Continue. I will now select whether the system will send a code or call me. I will click Send Code. I will enter the code into the verification code box. And I will now enter in my new password and confirm my new password. Then click Continue. The password has been reset, and we are back to the home screen of the Atrezzo Provider Portal. From the home screen, you can navigate within the system. The navigational pane allows you to search for your cases, create a case, search consumers, check for new messages from review staff, and search your case ID or authorization number. Setup, reports, and preferences are only available to users with the appropriate roles. You will also see a section where you can view cases that are saved but not submitted. This means that the creation of the case has been started but needs to be submitted before it can take the appropriate path to be reviewed. I will return to this later. I first want to demonstrate how to change between your assigned providers. The Atrezzo Provider Portal allows a user to be assigned to multiple providers or facilities. In the upper left-hand corner, your current assigned provider will display. This is an important step because you will only be able to submit prior authorizations or view determinations for the provider you are currently assigned to. This means that you will need to switch between your assigned providers depending on who was requesting the prior authorization. To change your provider, click Change Context. The providers your user is associated with will appear in a list below. If you do not have all of the providers or facilities you need access to, please contact your provider group administrator. Once again, this is an important step. You will want to make sure that the appropriate provider or facility is selected. This will determine the cases you will be able to view. To select the provider, you will click on the blue arrow. This means I will be able to submit prior authorizations and view determinations for this provider. Once again, to change the provider you are associated with, you will click on Change Context. And to select the provider, you will click on the blue arrow. Once you have chosen the provider or confirmed that the correct provider has been selected, you will begin creating your request. At the top of the page, in the navigational pane, you will click Create Case. Any information that is required will be indicated by the red asterisk. I want to draw your attention to the Go to Consumer Information button. It is currently grayed out and will not be available to click until all information has been completed. The case type will automatically default to UM. You will choose your case contract from the drop-down. There are two options in the drop-down, DMAS or expansion. Medicaid expansion aid categories are 100, 101, 102, 103, 106, and 108. You will choose DMAS for all other categories. For my demonstration, I will choose expansion. Then you will select your request type, whether inpatient or outpatient. I will be demonstrating both, but I will choose inpatient for the first example. Then click Go to Consumer Information. At the top, next to Step 1, you will see a green check mark. This check mark will indicate each step that has been completed successfully. If you see a red exclamation mark, you will need to return to that step to correct any mistakes or enter forgotten information. You will now search for your consumer. You can search by the consumer ID. The consumer ID is your member's Medicaid ID, or the combination of the date of birth and last name. I will enter the last name and date of birth for my example. Then click Search. The consumer will display, and if the consumer is correct, click Choose. Under the consumer information, any cases submitted by your provider group will be displayed. You will then click Create Case. I am now in an unsubmitted request. There is no Save button. The system will automatically save my progress as I enter information into the record. We are currently on Step 3, which is Additional Providers. Here, you can add attending physicians if applicable, and you will see the requesting provider and facility. You will first want to enter in or modify your fax number. You will click in the box and enter your fax number. Please note that the facility will automatically default to the requesting provider. If your organization or facility is not the one rendering the services, you will need to change the facility. To change the facility, you will click Update. You will choose the provider type, whether facility or provider. To search the facility, you can enter in the facility name, NPI, or tax ID. For providers, you can search by the first name, last name, NPI, or tax ID. For my example, I will enter in the NPI number, then click Search. The facility will display, and to select the facility, you will click Choose. Once you have determined that all information is correct, click Go to Service Details. Under Service Details, the admission source and place of service are not required fields. You can bypass any fields that are not required. You must complete the admit date. You can enter the date by typing in the field, or you can click on the calendar. By clicking on the calendar, you will select the date. You will now enter the service type. You will click the drop-down, and here you will select the option that is appropriate for the type of request that you are creating. For my example, I will choose Inpatient Psychiatric. Then you will click Go to Diagnosis. You will now add your diagnosis codes to the request. The code type defaults to ICD-10. You will now search your code. You will click in the search field and begin typing your code. Please note that any diagnosis code that has been set as preferred by your administrator will appear under Preferred. The diagnosis code will appear in a list below. You will click on the code to select. The code will then be added to the request. You will repeat this process for as many diagnosis codes as you may have. If you need to delete a code, you can click Remove. On the bottom left-hand side, you will see a button that says Add a Note. Add a Note will allow you to type in any additional information that you may have. Add a Note will be available at the bottom of each step. Each note box will allow up to 8,000 characters to be entered. If you do have notes that need to be typed, you only have to enter them once. You do not have to enter them in each note box unless it exceeds service limitations. Once all diagnosis codes have been added, you will click Go to Request. You will select your request type from the drop-down. You do have the option to select admission, concurrent, initial, prior auth, registration, or retrospective. For my example, I will choose initial. The notification date and time automatically populate. Click Go to Procedures. Because I chose to enter an inpatient request, the system will automatically add the LOS procedure line for me. If you have additional codes that need to be added, you can always enter the code into the search field. Please note that the code type automatically defaults to CPT. You will enter in your code and select the code from the list. We now have 2 codes listed below in an unsubmitted status. We must complete all required information for each code that we have added to the request. We will enter in the requested start date, end date, duration, and quantity. To enter in the requested start date, you can click in the box and type, or select the calendar. You will now enter in the requested end date. You can type in the box, select the calendar, or you can enter in the requested duration. The requested end date and duration are linked. I will enter in the requested duration, and the end date will automatically update. You will then enter in the requested quantity. Once all information has been completed, you will move on to your next procedure line. You will click on the procedure line, and we will follow the same process, completing the requested start date, end date, and duration. I will click on the calendar and select the date, and then I will enter in my duration. Once you have completed all the required information, you will scroll to the bottom and click Go to Questionnaires. There is a questionnaire that needs to be completed. To complete the questionnaire, you will click Open. The questionnaire will open in a new tab, and you will complete all the required information. Once all the information has been completed, you will click Mark as Complete. And the questionnaire has been completed. We will now move on to attach a document. You will click Go to Attachments. If you have additional information that you wish to add to the request, you will click Upload a Document. The request automatically populated to R01. You will choose the document type from the drop-down. For my example, I will choose Additional Information. To add the documentation, you can click Browse, or you can drag and drop your document. I will click Browse, select my document, and click Open. To drag and drop, you will select the document and drag it into the dialog box. Once all documents have been selected, you will click Upload. And your additional information has been added to the request. From here, you can click Jump to Submit to skip the remaining steps to submit your case. Or you can click Go to Communications. For my example, I will click Go to Communications. If you have additional information that you wish to type into the request, you can click Add a Note. You will add your additional information, then click Add Note, and the note has been added to the request. Click Go to Submit. We are now on step 10, which is the Submit Case or Review. Here you will see all the information that you have keyed into your request. Each card has an Update button at the bottom. This allows you to return to that step to make corrections or add any other additional information. If all information is correct, you will click Submit. You will receive a disclaimer that states, "I understand that pre-certification does not guarantee payment. I understand that pre-certification only identifies medical necessity and does not identify benefits." You will click Agree. The screen will refresh and your request has been submitted. The system will also generate a case ID. The case ID is a unique identifier for a request. You will want to make note of this number so you can return directly to your request to check status. For my next request, I will need to change the provider that I am associated with. I will click Change Context and select my provider. I will now demonstrate how to submit an outpatient request. I will click Create Case. The case type will automatically default to UM, and I will choose my case contract from the drop-down. And then choose my request type. For this example, I will choose Outpatient. Then click Go to Consumer Information. You will search for your consumer. Once again, you can search by the consumer ID or a combination of date of birth and last name. Then click Search. The consumer will display and you will click Choose. The consumer information, any cases submitted by your provider group will be displayed. You will see the submit date, service type, service dates, and procedures. The request number is a blue hyperlink that will take you directly to that request. When you click View Procedures, you will be able to see the procedures that were requested, the determination, the dates for the requested service, and the quantity. To return to the case queue, click Close. The Actions button will give you additional actions that you can select for your request. The Actions button is located in multiple areas within the portal. I will be demonstrating each action that is available later. Each heading at the top is actionable, which means if you need to put the queue into alphabetical order or chronological order, you can click the heading and it will change the order of your request. A second click will reverse the order. This is a good place to stop and be sure you are not creating a duplicate request. Once all information has been confirmed, click Create Case. You will be on step 3, where you can add an attending physician, and you will see the requesting and servicing provider. If the fax number needs to be entered or changed, you will click in the fax field and enter in the new fax number. Just like before, the servicing provider will automatically default to the requesting provider, and if you are not the one rendering services, you will need to update the servicing provider. If all information is correct, you will click Go to Service Details. The place of service is not a required field, but you will choose your service type from the drop-down. Once again, you will choose the service type that is appropriate for the request that you are creating. For my example, I will choose Community Mental Health Rehab Services. Then click Go to Diagnosis. The code type automatically defaults to ICD-10, and I will enter my code into the search box. We will select the code from the list, and the diagnosis code has been added to the request. You will follow this process for each diagnosis code that you may have. Once all diagnosis codes have been selected, you will click Go to Request. You will select the request type from the drop-down. For this example, I will use concurrent, and the notification date and time automatically default. Then click Go to Procedures. We will enter the code into the search field. Please note that the code type automatically defaults to CPT code. You will click in the search box and type your code. The code will appear in a list below, and you will select the code. The procedure code will appear below in an unsubmitted status. We will complete the requested start date, end date, duration, and quantity. Once all the required information has been completed, you will scroll down and click Go to Questionnaires. A questionnaire has been added to the request to complete. To complete the questionnaire, you will click Open. The questionnaire will open in a new tab, and you will complete all the required information. This questionnaire has several different sections that need to be completed. You can click Next to move to the next page, or you can click on the navigational tree. I will click Next, and we will repeat the same process. You will notice that in the navigational tree, a green check mark will appear for each section that has been completed successfully. When all the information on the questionnaire has been completed, you will click Mark as Complete, and the questionnaire has been completed. If you have additional information that you wish to attach, you will click Go to Attachments. Cancel will cancel the request, or you can click Jump to Submit. Jump to Submit will skip the remaining steps and take you directly to submit your case. For this demonstration, I will click Jump to Submit. We are now on step 10, which is the Submit Case or Review. Here you will see all the information that has been keyed into the request. Each card has an update button at the bottom. This will allow you to return to that step to make any corrections or add additional information. If all information is correct, you will click Submit. You will receive the disclaimer and click Agree. The request has been submitted, and the system will generate a case ID. Once again, you will want to take note of this number. There's one more request that I wish to submit. You will click Create Case. The case type automatically defaults, and I will choose my case contract from the drop-down. For this example, I will choose DMAS. Then choose the request type. For this example, I will use Outpatient. Then click Go to Consumer Information. You can search by the combination of date of birth and last name, or by the member ID. Then click Search. The consumer will display, and you will click Choose. Then click Create Case. We are on step 3, which is the additional providers. and I will enter in the fax number. Once again, if you need to change the servicing provider, you will click Update. Then click Go to Service Details. You will choose the service type from the drop-down, and I will choose the Community Mental Health Rehab Services. Then click Go to Diagnosis. The code type will default to ICD-10, and you will search your diagnosis code. Then select the code from the list. You will repeat this process for each diagnosis code that you may have. Once all diagnosis codes have been added, you will click Go to Request. You will choose the request type from the drop-down. For this example, I will choose Registration. The notification date and time default. You will then click Go to Procedures. The code type defaults to CPT code, and I will enter the procedure code in the search box. Then select the code from the list. The procedure code will display below in an unsubmitted status, and we will enter in the requested start date, end date, duration, and quantity. Once all the required information has been entered, you will scroll down and click Go to Questionnaires. You will complete the questionnaire by clicking Open, and you will complete all the required information. Then click Mark as Complete. The questionnaire has been completed, and you can click Go to Attachments to attach any additional documentation, or you can click Jump to Submit. For my example, I will click Jump to Submit. If all information is correct, you will click Submit. You will receive the disclaimer and click Agree. The request has been submitted, and the system will generate a case ID. We will now review the Message Center. The Message Center is where any messages that have been sent by the review team on a request can be displayed. In the navigational pane, you will see Message Center. And in this case, it is displaying a 1 next to it. If we click the Message Center, we will be able to see the case that the message is associated with, who it is from, who it is to, and when it was sent. To view the message, you will click the arrow. We can reply to the message here by entering a message and clicking Send, or we can navigate to the case by clicking Go to Case. We will now walk through the process of adding additional documentation. At the top of the screen, there will be an Actions button. You will click Actions, then click Add Additional Clinical Information. We will select our request from the drop-down. In this example, I will select the R01 and click Next. Here we can enter our note or attach additional documentation. I will add a file to the request by clicking Browse, selecting the file, and clicking Open. I will select my document type from the drop-down and then click Submit. And our additional information has been submitted. Notice that the Message Center now indicates a 0, meaning there are no messages for you to view. The Message Center will only display messages until we have viewed them. Once you have replied to the message or navigated to the case, that message will no longer be visible. I will now demonstrate how to view your determinations. You want to keep track of the case ID, as mentioned before. The easiest way to get a status update from the provider portal is to use the case ID. In the navigation pane, there is a search bar on the right-hand side. You will enter your case ID and press enter on your keyboard or click anywhere outside of the box. This will refresh the page and bring us directly to our case. On the left-hand side, you will see that the request status is completed. The Atrezzo Provider Portal has several different status of review that are all color-coded and will indicate which part of the review process your case is currently in. There is an unsubmitted status, which identifies a case that has been created but not submitted. A submitted status that indicates the case has been submitted but has yet to be reviewed. Active review, which identifies a case that is being reviewed by a clinical reviewer. Then there is a completed status, which means that the case has been submitted, reviewed, a determination made, and is now complete. To view your determination, click on Case Summary. The case summary will open in a new tab. The case summary is an expanded version of the case view. It will show you the consumer information, your servicing provider, the diagnosis codes, what was requested. You will also be able to see your determination, whether approved or denied. Your authorization number is also listed here. Below, if there are any notes, they would be viewed here. Questionnaires, documents, and letters will be blue hyperlinks, which means if you would want to view a questionnaire, document, or letter, you would click on the file name and it will open in a new tab. I will close out of the case summary by closing the tab. You will also be able to view your authorization above the case summary, and if you expand out clinical, your authorization number will be listed here as well. I will now demonstrate how to extend your request. At the top of the request, you will see Extend. You will click Extend. You will receive an alert asking, do you wish to extend this record? You will click Yes to extend. And we are in an unsubmitted case. You will notice that the view of your case is different from what you've seen before when using the Create Case in the navigational pane. All the required information will be within the ribbons. When you create an extension, you will notice that the case ID will remain the same. It will also copy over the member, your provider facility. If you expand clinical by clicking on the arrow, you will see that it also copies the service details, diagnosis code, and the procedure code. You will notice that Request 01 has 4 reviewed procedures, and it's in a submitted status. Under Request 02, you will see that it's unsubmitted. We will scroll down. Procedure codes on the original request have also been copied over. We will need to complete the requested end date, duration, and quantity. Just like before, you can click in the box and use the calendar to select the date, or we can enter in the requested duration. I will enter in the requested duration, and the end date will automatically update. I will now enter in the requested quantity. We will move on to the next code. We will need to complete the requested end date, duration, and quantity. The end date will update, and I will enter in the requested quantity. And we will continue that process for each code that is on the case. We will scroll down to questionnaires, expand questionnaires by clicking on the arrow, and we have 2 questionnaires that need to be completed. You will click on the name of the questionnaire, and the questionnaire will open in a new tab. And just like before, you would complete all the required information on the questionnaire. When the required information is complete, you will click Mark as Complete. And we will complete the next questionnaire. Please note that documents that have been attached and notes that have been made to the original request will not copy over. To add additional documentation, you will expand the Attachments ribbon by clicking on the arrow, then expand Documents. You will click here to upload file. You will browse for your file. Select your file and click Open. You will choose your document type and then choose the request from the dropdown as R02. Anytime that you see R01, that is in reference to request 1 or the initial request. R02 is your extension request. Click Upload. And your document has been attached. To add a note, you will expand Communications, expand Notes, then click Add Note. You will choose the request from the dropdown as R02 and enter in your note. Then click Save. Once all required information has been completed, you will check the disclaimer. You will click Submit. I have received an alert. Be sure that you read all alerts in their entirety. Click Ignore and Submit. The screen will refresh, and we will be directed back to the completed case. But when you scroll down, you will see the request 01, which is the initial or original request. Then you will see the request 02 that is not reviewed but submitted. I will now demonstrate how to copy your request. At the top of the request, click Copy. You will receive an alert asking, do you want to copy this record? If you wish to copy the record, you will click Yes. And we are in an unsubmitted request. Creating a copy and creating an extension are 2 different functions. You will notice that whenever we created the extension, it has the same case ID as the original request. By creating a copy, you are creating a new request, so it will not copy over that case ID. But it does copy over the information of the request. It will copy the consumer, the provider facility. It copies over the service type and request type, your diagnosis codes, and your procedure codes. You will have to complete the requested start date, end date, duration, and quantity for all of your procedure codes. Once all the required information for the procedure codes has been completed, you would scroll down to complete the questionnaire, attach any documents that you may have, or add a note. Once all information has been completed, you will click the disclaimer and then click Submit. The request has been submitted and has generated a case ID. I will now return to the home screen. I have another case that I would like to check status for. I will return to the search by number box and enter in my case ID. I can click anywhere outside of the box or press enter on my keyboard to be navigated to my request. My case has been completed, and I will click on Case Summary to view my determination. I will scroll down to my request, and I can see that my case has been denied. Under Letters, the file name will be a hyperlink, and you will be able to click on the name to open the letter in a new tab. You are able to print the letter by clicking on the printer icon. To close the letter, you will close the tab. If you need to print a copy of the case summary for your records, you will scroll to the top and click the printer icon. To exit the case summary, you will click out of the tab. I will now demonstrate how to submit a peer-to-peer. You will click Actions at the top of your request, and then click Request Peer-to-Peer Review. You will select your request from the drop-down as R01, then click Next. You will make your note or attach your document. Then click Submit. And your peer-to-peer has been submitted. I will now return to Home. I will now demonstrate how to complete a saved request. Requests saved but not submitted will appear on your home screen. Notice that when my mouse hovers over the line for the request, the pencil icon will appear. To continue the submission process for the request, you will click on the pencil icon to edit. It will bring you back to your request so you can continue to enter your clinical information and the required information to submit. Once again, please note that the case does look different from before. The Create Case has a different layout than what it does whenever you edit a saved request. You will complete all the required information before you submit. This concludes the demonstration on how to submit prior authorizations and the other functionalities of the Atrezzo Provider Portal.